I'd first of all like to thank Tony Brewer for inviting me. Today I'm mainly going to be reading from my newest chapbook, which is entitled Perpetual Astonishment. And it was the winner of the Beyond Words Poetry Chapbook Contest out of Berlin, Germany. This book is divided into 3 sections, and the first section has a lot of nature-type poems, but they also, of course, relate to human nature. This first one is entitled, After Learning That a Woman and Her Baby Were Killed in the Bombing of a Ukrainian Maternity Hospital. Each spring, a cardinal resurrects her nest in the spirea bush outside our library window. Patient in her pursuits, she scavenges wheat straws from fallow fields, dried pine needles, tiny twigs. The cupped cradle, perched on forked branches, clings there, awaiting the clutch of eggs to come, the soft songs she will croon as she broods. But this morning, inside a flower bed, just beginning to fill with green spears of daffodils, her remains, feathers so pale a red they verge on pink, color of water tinged with blood. We have heard the owl each night claiming this territory, the same old story of the strong taking what they want, and now he has left behind nothing but pinions, as if some tiny angel tumbled to earth, slipped off her wings, and chose to walk all the way back to heaven. And the second one in this section is entitled From the Kitchen Window, Sunday Morning, Early June. The ancient catalpa, brought down by wind and whining blade years ago, has been reborn from the inside, sporting 2 slender feminine legs for trunk, now tossing blossoms ruffled and white like a young girl's church day anklets. A choir of daylilies gather around, opening their throats in praise, shouting orange hallelujahs. Nearby, mulberry trees have strewn their alms, amethysts, garnets, onto the back patio, luring the return of a young buck, all knees, tail twitch, ear flick. Antlers that had been velvet knobs a week ago have now grown stems, promise of staghood, a time of bravado bellows and earth pawing, walking rival horns to rule as sultan of the harem. But this morning, he gently bows his head, accepts each berry with quivering lips, a solemn communion. These are what the world needs on this Sunday morning in June, a promise of resurrection, an act of unbridled joy, a reminder of tender mercies. Thank you. And the last one in this section is the title poem, Perpetual Astonishment, and it begins with a quotation by Kurt Vonnegut. I belong to an unholy disorder. We call ourselves Our Lady of Perpetual Astonishment, and that's from Kurt Vonnegut's A Man Without a Country. Perhaps there is something holy after all in this unholy disorder around us. Note the spider, blood as blue as the Virgin's robe, building a cathedral of orb webs. Or the honeybee sipping communion from the rose of Sharon, hovering member of an angel host, its wings practicing ascension as they beat 200 times per second. Listen to an exaltation of larks, or watch an order of starlings in their shiny cassocks chanting in notes too high for humans to hear. Congregate among the Douglas fir or the cedars biblical in size, and know they confess in tongues known only to them, seek redemption. Look up into the vault of the night sky, where stars sing their own requiem, and when they die, scatter their cores into space, seeds for a new generation. Let us all kneel at this altar, learn the lessons of the supernova, to pass along the amazement of this world, to never forget to worship at the grotto of Our Lady of Perpetual Astonishment. And thank you. The second part of the book deals with my Cherokee heritage and Native heritage in general. And this first one is entitled Education of a Sixth-Generation Cherokee Refugee. My grandmother never taught me how to cut the finest honeysuckle vines or river cane, how to soak until pliable enough to reliably weave baskets dyed from blood, root, sassafras, walnut bark. My grandmother never taught me to plant 3 sisters, corn, beans, squash. She never showed me how to predict weather with persimmon seeds, or how to make canuchi, gathering hickory nuts still inside hulls, cracking, sifting, mashing with pestle. My grandmother never taught me how to dig the native red clay, to coil the strips, to carve a wooden paddle for imprinting pots fired with white oak. My grandmother never taught me the green corn dance, or the myth of the Milky Way, or how to read sequoia's symbols. My grandmother only taught me fear, to avoid rocking an empty chair, never to lay a coat across the foot of a bed, to toss salt over my shoulder if I spilled the shaker, to spit into the road if a black cat crossed, to recognize death in the daytime visitation of an owl, or in the nighttime dream of a white horse, the same one that came to her, knelt, carried away her own mother. And the second one in this section deals with the disappearance or the really murder of so many of the Native children in the schools where they were sent. And this is entitled Disappeared. Come, find where they buried me, beneath a land not my own, a place of pain where men in collars used Christ's suffering to justify mine, strapping me with cat o' nine tails, forcing me to bear the cross for a God who did not wear my skin, who did not live in ancient tree or rock. A place where women wearing wings on their heads married Jesus and adopted as children born of sin, punished for our parents' desires for our own, slaps across the face or lashes for using our native tongue, dark confinement for days if those words were a prayer, a place where our memories were stolen, a place where we were scalded with kerosene, where our hair was shamed and sheared. If caught running away, we suffered the razor, heads shaved, girls and boys, because they knew our spirit lived there, blowing free in the wind. A place where we swallowed the secrets they swore us to, buried them deep, where they could not haunt us or them. a place where we too were buried in coffins, hammered by classmates, disappeared in unmarked graves dug by our brothers. Come, find where they buried me. Bind my bones in braided sweetgrass. Cradle me next to your breast. Give me a name that means justice, and sing me home to my people. Thank you. And the last one I will read in this section deals with my family home in Oklahoma, where my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother lived. And this is entitled Grand Lake of the Cherokees. Men left their farms, joined the CCC, swallowed their oaky pride, cashed their government checks, telling themselves they were constructing a future for their progeny, too many to survive on farms of 200-acre hard scrabble plots plowed out of limestone. When the dam was completed, the gates switched open, the grand river gushed into the valleys, pushed over persimmon and pawpaw trees in its rush. This verdant land had been allotted to the Cherokees, children and grandchildren of those who walked from the south, mouths dry and silent with loss. But even here, the government took back their promise, forced a few dollars into Indian pockets, and gave the lake their name. My second great-grandmother, widowed by bandits, bitten by a copperhead at 85, continued to roam the hills, plucking dewberries like garnet pendants, until she was forced to gather remnants of her life, hitch her skirts, and scurry to a nearby town, while the waters drowned the memories made inside her house, hewn from old growth timber. The oak dining table floated to the ceiling, all 6 chairs still tucked beneath as if waiting for the dinner bell, the pushing back, scraping of wood on wood, the murmur of hurried grace. Thank you. And then this last part is just about memories, mainly memories of growing up. And this one is entitled Illumination. Summer evenings ablaze with fireflies, lightning lanterns signaling in dew-tipped grass. We paraded our bare, rock-toughened feet up and down the mound of earth covering the storm cellar, brides or queens in procession. Then, in the distance, we would hear the whistle, track clatter of a passenger train imagining its way to a city. No stop near this one-stop light town, shuddered when Route 66 shuddered to sleep. Inside the cars, silhouettes of diners, profiles behind drawn shades, a beacon on each table, a tableau of elegance dreamed in our pretend preteen world. And sometimes, at the very end, a uniformed man stood holding the railing of the caboose, raising his hand in one swift wave or salute as we cheered this promise of leaving, peered down the track until there was nothing left but a light so small it could have been just another firefly after all. Thank you. And this next one is what you missed while you were in Grandma's living room with all the other women. Aunt Sandra taught us younger girls how to pin up our hair with dippity-doo, sit under the dryer with its Jiffy Pop bonnet, how to spit curl frames around our foreheads, a la Liz Taylor. Aunt Sandra showed us how to load a man's razor with double-edged blade, to lather legs with a bar of ivory, then move furrows of foam, leaving a flesh mirror of calves and thighs. Aunt Sandra demonstrated how to stuff the cups of our dime store bras, creating Kleenex cleavage, how to step inside a stiff standing can, wiggling it up under an American bandstand skirt. Aunt Sandra taught us how to polish our canvas tennis shoes with roll-on white to make our kids look new again, to match them with a plastic belt cinched to create curves we did not have yet. Aunt Sandra directed us to form a line while she dropped the needle on the 45, taught us to dance the stroll, to weave our feet in overlapping figure eights to the smooth crooning of the diamonds. Aunt Sandra showed us how to hold a Chesterfield between fingers, to flick, to leave a strawberry red kiss print on the filter, to turn a dimpled cheek away, to blow smoke through a pout. Aunt Sandra dabbed perfume behind our ears, turning the curvy cobalt bottle over and over as she moved to each, and for just a moment, we were women dreaming of an evening in Paris. Thank you. And the last one in this book is about my father, and it's called Made in America. My father was one of the men who, coming back, shed his Army uniform, traded his sniper rifle for textbooks, meaning to milk the GI Bill for a monthly check, as he sat in junior college classes, surrounded by teenage girls drawing hearts across their notebooks, writing Elvis, Marlon, or Tab inside. He did not mean to fall in love with learning, which only made the breakup of graduation harder when he had to face his fate. A man with a family needed the factory pay. For 30 years, he donned his navy blue pocket tees and crepe-soled shoes, carried his lunch bucket shaped like a black metal barn. He chewed beech nut as he lifted, pulled, cut, creating tires on an assembly line. In summer, when temperatures blazed, he popped salt tablets that turned his sweat white. And every few years, he walked the picket lines during strikes to demand a quarter raise. Stench of rubber resided inside his nose, and he did not know, as he dipped his fingers into benzene or wiped carbon black away with his hanky, that he was holding his own death in his hands as he numbed his mind, toiled away night after night on the graveyard shift. The last poem I'll be reading is not from the book. I was kind of surprised to learn that I had won the Solar Eclipse Poetry Contest through the Indiana Humanities. And so I was the official Solar Eclipse Poet of Indiana. And I didn't even know I was advertised that way. And I was in a classroom helping some high school students with academic competition. And this one boy was sitting back with his phone, and the teacher who was there was upset with him because he was using his phone. And so afterwards he came up and he said, "Mrs. Reising, I wasn't really being rude. I just looked you up on my phone." He said, "You're the official Eclipse Poet of Indiana." And I said, "I'm what?" So I said, "I did not know that." But anyway, this is the poem that won, and it will be coming out in my next full-length book, which is scheduled probably at the beginning of next year. It's called Navigation, but this one's entitled The Reason We Gather for the Solar Eclipse. It is not because the light pinholes through oak leaves, creating a circus of crescent suns up on the lawn, performers in spangled costumes. It is not to feel the day lose its way, the waning of warmth sending icy fingers to stroke our prickled arms. It is not to see the scenery's color seeping away to sepia, like a tintype photograph of unremembered ancestors. It is not hearing the sudden hush of songbirds rushing to roost among the limbs of shadowed pines. It is not observing orb-weaving spiders dismantling their webs, stowing them like returned sailors rigging. It is not to keep a date with Venus, spreading her goddess glow, outshining the stars, startled by their daytime awakening. It is not to share the wealth of Bailey's beads strung around the moon, or the golden corona crowning the royal sun. No, we gather for that moment, after totality's darkness, when we stand, faces upturned, waiting for that brilliant flash of promise, and we think, ah yes, this is the way it will be. Thank you.